Trophy. The word itself is a commonly used pronoun with a broad definition that means different things to different people. This one word, its use and its meaning, has not escaped the language of the sportsman for centuries. By Webster's definition, a trophy describes something gained or given in victory or conquest, especially when preserved or mounted as a memorial. Given this description, we can certainly see why trophy fits so prominently within our hunting society. Regardless of words and meanings, hunters have always celebrated the success and memories of the hunt by saving for posterity great representatives of nature. The quest for trophy can therefore be very strong, burned into our culture to the point of obsession for some. As with all human activities, a periodic grounding of principles and an understanding of motivations and meanings can help add to the significance of accomplishment and ensure the survival of the activities. In this case, survival means the future health of our wildlife and the opportunity to hunt. It is not known exactly when the display and admiration of hunting trophies began, but we do know of its importance. Man's first art demonstrated a respect for the largest of a species. In early European cultures, castles were adorned with trophies that represented a mastery over the land and the quality of the landowner's holdings, which included wildlife. Such displays of mounted antlers and pelts served as a constant reminder of man's connection with nature and his dominion over wild creatures, a dominion that eventually developed into a need for conservation. The story of commercial market hunting, unregulated sport hunting, irresponsible land use, and wildlife diseases passed from domestic stock to wild populations is well documented in nearly wiping out animals and birds in North America, especially game species. These negative trends were overturned by sportsmen who took it upon themselves to drive forward a new word, conservation, into the fabric of our society. The most notable figure in this crusade was Theodore Roosevelt. Behind him, and less known, were his friends within the conservancy he founded, members of the Boone and Crockett Club. Roosevelt and other club members worked diligently to establish and gain public support for the concept of conservation, enact laws and legislation, set aside lands as sanctuaries for recovering wildlife populations, and raise funds to support the science of wildlife management. They also did something else for conservation: define trophy and fair chase. The Boone and Crockett Club's motivations for defining trophy through a measuring and records-keeping process for big game animals, and then publishing trophy records books, were intended to do much more than just capitalize on man's preoccupation for recognition. As we will learn, the genius of Theodore Roosevelt was greater than the sum of its parts. In June of 2010, a celebration was held in Reno, Nevada. The honorary guests, trophies. Every 3 years since 1947, the Boone and Crockett Club has gathered to celebrate the largest representatives of wildlife taken by sportsmen and sportswomen in fair chase. What was actually celebrated at this latest gathering in Reno may surprise some. When the largest specimens of native North American wildlife taken in the previous 3 years are on display, it would be easy to conclude that this was a celebration of great animals that lived. Since these animals would not be on display if it were not for hunters, it would be safe to say that hunters were also being honored. Both are true. But such Boone and Crockett events have deeper meanings that circle back to Theodore Roosevelt and his visions. The first such trophy display opened in 1922 at the Bronx Zoo in New York City. Here, the Boone and Crockett Club opened its national collection of heads and horns for public display with a particular purpose in mind. At the time, our wildlife was in desperate condition. The inscription over the entrance to this trophy exhibit read, "In memory of the vanishing big game of the world." While people marveled at the sight of huge animals from around the world, many having never been seen before by the public of North America, people got mad. How could this be happening? How could we let this happen? The public outcry from this exhibit was so great that it reached the halls of Congress, and subsequent legislation aimed at the protection of wildlife and their habitats was given top priority. This single exhibit helped to foster the public's realization that all wildlife belonged to them and was in their care. It may have been just a taxidermy display, but it ignited the public support for conservation, which to that point was lacking. Thus was the intention of Roosevelt and the Boone and Crockett Club. The club's national collection of heads and horns now greets visitors in Cody, Wyoming, at the Buffalo Bill Historical Museum. The 27th Big Game Awards in Reno was intended to remind the sporting community where we started and how far we had come. The focal point of this event was trophies. Not just any trophies, but the top 5 Boone and Crockett trophies in every category of North American game. These were not trophies of old or the good old days of hunting in North America. The importance of these trophies is that they were living and taken in fair chase during just the previous 3 years. The significance of this connects to the main reason why Boone and Crockett continues to record trophies, publish record books, and host these triennial events. The abundance of mature male trophies that we have today is significant.
It's pretty magnificent, really. I mean, it's amazing that there's this many big animals still that people get to go out and have the opportunity to hunt all these big animals that are here. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to get to do it too.
Without our successes in conservation, such mature trophies would not exist today. The presence of outstanding specimens of horn, antler, tusk, and skull are then an affirmation that natural resource perpetuation is working, at least for our game species and their habitats, which in turn is a benefit to all wildlife and man.
And I think it's great that everybody brings them here and lets everybody else get to see them and enjoy the stories and talking to everybody. It's just a lot of fun to get in a crowd that everybody's a hunter.
Under our systems of conservation and game management, wildlife belongs to the public, and ownership of game species can only be transferred to individuals once legally taken and tagged. Boone and Crockett has upheld these principles by ensuring the public has access to see and learn about its wildlife by publishing records books and hosting public exhibitions of trophies every 3 years. It is a well-known fact that successful conservation throughout history has been initiated and funded by sportsmen. As pay-to-play users of these natural resources, sportsmen and sportswomen, including anglers, leave behind the most positive conservation footprints in the history of renewable resources. Of these groups, those selectively seeking a trophy willingly place an extra envelope in the collection plate of conservation.
Started elk hunting probably 35 years ago, and you know, with my father, my grandfather, and kind of lost it when I went to college and started working. I got away from it for a while, and then probably 15 years ago I got reinterested in hunting. Someone tipped me off that there were some special tags available if I wanted to go, and fortunately I had the resources to do that. And I did some research with the Elk Foundation, with Boone and Crockett, and even with some of the deer, you know, the Mule Deer Foundation, and found out that some of the special tags that they were selling, 100% of all of the money that the tags generated went back into perpetuating, you know, the resource, went back into game management and resource management, which was very important to me.
The trophy hunting industry in Alberta is a $250 million economic impact, and a lot of that goes to our wildlife biologists and helps them take care of the game that everyone enjoys.
Are these monies being spent wisely and on wildlife? The proof was in Reno this past June. Trophies and the opportunity to hunt them would simply not be available as an option today if mature males did not still roam the countryside. The next question is, are our systems of conservation and game management working? The classic gauge in measuring these successes or failures remains the Boone and Crockett Records Book. These data reflect the recovery of our big game species from near disaster and show the number of annual record book entries has actually quadrupled since 1980. However, the presence of trophy game in and of itself seems like an imperfect measuring stick until reviewed scientifically. Research has shown that the single most important representative of wildlife health is the existence of mature male animals on the landscape. Such animals represent an age class balance to individual species populations. Males within a given population aging to maturity under the watchful eye of state and provincial game agencies also means that the annual quota removed by sportsmen is in balance with natural reproduction and survival. Unfortunately, with success, criticism can follow. One such criticism is being fostered by the misconception that all trophies today are being taken on private land and come at a high cost in permits, access, and guide and outfitter fees. According to Boone and Crockett historical data, and confirmed again by just walking through the trophy display in Reno and meeting the trophy owners, the exact opposite is true. Trophies today are still being taken by lucky hunters of all walks of life, age, sex, and economic status. It is true, however, that some species in low supply and high demand, or those that require expensive machinery and manpower to reach in the back country can and do come with a higher price tag just to hunt them. Beyond these few exceptions, thankfully, public wildlife still means public wildlife. The truth is, the opportunity to hunt, as well as the opportunity to harvest a trophy, do exist and are obtainable without breaking the bank. There are exceptions to every rule. Our state systems of game management do allow for some dreams to come true. Just ask Montana residents Debbie Perry and Tony Shannon. They both played the state's Bighorn Sheep Lottery and won. Not only in drawing highly coveted sheep tags in the same year, both taking bighorn rams scoring over 200 inches and being in the top 5 for the 27th awards period, but in a lasting friendship that developed over a common achievement and bond.
Overall, I did know that it was a once-in-a-lifetime tag.
That's interesting because I hadn't heard about you getting
Oh, really?
Till later on. Yeah, later on.
I think when I sent mine in, I think yours Boone and Crockett had already found, got yours.
Yeah, you must have waited. You waited a while to send yours in, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah.
Theodore Roosevelt once said, "Conservation means development as much as it does protection. I recognize the right and duty of this generation to develop and use the natural resources of our land, but I do not recognize the right to waste them or to rob, by wasteful use, the generations that come after us." Obviously, the lifeblood of any activity that has been sustained for centuries is its new participants. In hunting, this is our youth. For the first time in its history, the Boone and Crockett Club expanded its awards program to include and recognize young hunters who were 16 years or younger when they tagged a Boone and Crockett qualifying trophy. 16 of the 71 youth hunters from the previous 3-year period that accomplished this distinction were able to attend the events in Reno with their families. The light shining from these young faces is all that need be said. Trophies, scoring, and record books mean different things to different people. To the Boone and Crockett Club and the Pope and Young Club that host similar award events every 2 years for archery-taken trophies, these are more than just lists of names and numbers. They are the history of big game hunting in North America and a gauge of successful conservation and game management for all people. They are also a standing testament to the noble tenets of fair chase, as practiced by millions of sportsmen, whether their names appear in a book or not. Thanks to Theodore Roosevelt, George Bird Grinnell, and other founding fathers of the Boone and Crockett Club who made it possible for us to celebrate some 120 years later, the future of our big game species couldn't be in better hands.
These were men, first and foremost, who were born with and developed a great love for the outdoors and all aspects of it. Game animals, predators, varmints, game and songbirds, insects, land, water, you name it, all of it. They loved it. By profession, some of these men were scientists, some were foresters, some were writers and painters, some were politicians, some were backwoodsmen, and some were gentlemen sportsmen. Virtually all of them were hunters.
While all hunters may not seek, take, or see a Boone and Crockett trophy, the eternal hope that one is out there remains one of the strongest bonds between the hunter and the continuing need for conservation.